Good evening or good morning, good whatever time it is you're listening to this. We're going to be going over the datasets, earnings, and SPY for February 25th, 2025. And with that said, let's go ahead and jump straight into the data. Now, there's not a whole ton of data today. Most of the data comes out, I believe, on Friday, if I remember my notes correctly. Let me just check. Yeah, it's basically just we have some PCE on Thursday. Most of it comes out on Friday. So today we have the CB consumer confidence at 10 a.m. If we get a higher read in that, then very likely the yields will pull upward. If we get a weaker reading in that, then the yields will pull downward. So equities would very likely drop if we get a higher yield or a higher number in that, and they'd very likely pull upward if we get a weaker number in that. So and what else? We have Vice Chair Fed Barr at 11:45 a.m. It's kind of up in the air what he can say or not. As I said in my video last night, the Fed's kind of split on where they stand for when they plan to end QT, which is quantitative tightening. That's when they sell treasuries into the market to, you know, get money essentially. Uh, we're still not sure when they're ending that, so the Fed speakers right now can kind of be up in the air of whether they're going to be important to the market or not. So we just kind of have to play it each speech at a time. We have the 5-year auction coming in at 1 p.m. I don't really expect a whole ton out of that. If anything, just a weaker yield, very likely, unless Chair or Vice Chair Barr says something that changes that. Now for the earnings for today. I'm not really expecting anything crazy. Like I mentioned in the video yesterday, the only one I'm looking at is First Solar, which is FSLR for the symbol. Most of the big earnings come on Wednesday after hours. As you can see, we have NVIDIA, Ion, Q, you know, plenty of big names in there. Snow, Salesforce, the list goes on. Just a quick reminder before we get into the technical analysis. If you've been finding value in my insights, consider joining my Patreon. For just $12.99 a month, you'll get access to my trades, courses, and powerful tools to help you grow as a trader. I'd love to have you be a part of our team and community. And it's less than 43 cents a day. So if you'd like to join, click in the link in the description. Thanks. And with that said, let's go ahead and jump into the SPY TA. So going over the daily as usual. We will go over the moving averages and the Bollingers, and we're actually in a pretty critical spot right now, so I'm going to go ahead and talk about that if I don't forget. So we closed at 597.21. The overnight is currently up at 598.15. The 5 mall currently is at 606, excuse me, 39. It's very likely going to open at 604.60, give or take. Uh, and that's a very important level. I'll explain why in a second. The 10 is at 606.49, so very likely the 5 is going to be opening quite underneath the 10 which is, one of the first bear signals we receive. And then we have the 20 at 604.42, which, as I mentioned, we're very likely going to be seeing the 5 open almost right on top of where the 20 is. So if we have another selling day downward, uh, that's gonna cross and gonna be extremely bearish. Now we have the upper Bollinger at 613.54. Doesn't really matter too much right now. We're pretty far away from that. But the important level is that we have the lower Bollinger at 595.29, and seeing how we're only about $2 or $3 away from that level, it's very likely we're going to be pulling downward and hitting that level, if not today. And just to quickly go over why that's important, lower Bollinger moves generally are the inverse of what an upper Bollinger move is. So if we get the lower Bollinger tomorrow, which means that we'd be closing at or below that 595 level, then what we would expect is, the bottom Bollinger day one, and then day two, we'd expect a lower low. So lower than that 595 level, potentially around 593, 592, even 590. We could see quite a lot of downside. We have a really nice gap right here, which is that 590, 49. So they could create a really nice inverse cup right there. Um, I don't really expect them to dig all the way down to like this 582. I mean, that's really really pushing it. That it really expand the Bollingers out quite a bit. So I don't expect that to happen just yet. But we absolutely could take that 590 49 level. And if we do have that happen, then that'll happen on the second day of the bottom Bollinger, which lines up really well with Nvidia. So if Nvidia's earnings come out to be good, which if we dig deeper in the market, I kind of anticipate Nvidia's earnings to be better. I know that might sound weird, but usually when we dig deep into the bottom Bollinger area, that's when I start getting bullish, as usually we bounce out of that area up into the 5 mile. Well, the 5 mile is currently at 606. Very likely uh, this next session is going to be at 604. Sorry, excuse me for that. But it's very likely going to be at 604, and the following day after, it's very likely going to be around that 601 to 602 level, and the day after, it's very likely going to be around that 600 level, which means that we're very likely going to start pulling support back up towards that 600 range. So if we do see our bottom Bollinger move downward, then that would be, excuse me, the end of Wednesday, that we would start seeing that start pulling upward towards the Nvidia earning. And if Nvidia earning is really good, sorry about that, I had to clear my throat. If Nvidia's earnings really good, then it's going to bounce off that bottom Bollinger day two, head all the way back up to that 600 level, and catch the 5 mile, which is really important. I mean, that would be a really bullish move, and that would start building a cup upward. But checking out the 4-hour chart really quick, and hiding the Bollingers. Now, we did complete this cup that I talked about yesterday, which went from there to there. And then we started to make a nice little handle, which went from there to there. And this handle is also building out for a larger structure, which I'm going to delete this cup right there to show it. But this handle built a nice little cup right here. Okay, as you can see on the daily, or for today's session anyway, we touched down at that 596 49 level on both the candles. As you can see towards the close, we had that 596.57, and then we had the 596.49 earlier in the session, so that created an inverse cup downward. Now what we should be looking forward to, and I'm gonna redraw this cup because it's just way too janky. So we have the inverse cup. Okay, it just decided to make it terrible, but whatever. Just have to play along with me. So what we should be expecting now is a handle on this inverse cup, and another basically inverse cup to form, and what that can look like is a head and shoulders. So if we pull upward in the midday in the trading session today, then start looking for a bearish structure to pull downward and form that right shoulder, and that would form a inverse cup, which would allow us to pull downward and, you know, excuse me, continue into the bottom Bollinger like I mentioned, and that would be a very, very nice move. And while I'm not measuring these out directly, um, yeah, it'd probably be a solid 7, 8 point move on the day. So it'd be all the way down. Um, you know, that's a pretty decent move to take put. So be on the lookout for that. But what we should also be look on the lookout for is them potentially filling this cup upward. These cups are so janky, I'm sorry. So if we start seeing liquidity forming, and what you should be looking forward to is something like an inverse head and shoulders. And what that would do, I don't want to delete all the drawings, I just want to delete this cup, is form a large cup upward, right? And that would give us some structure to start heading upward and start filling some of these gaps that um, the selling has created on the downside. But I really don't anticipate that right now. I'm actually pretty bearish, seeing how on the daily chart all the moving averages are telling us that it wants to head downward. We crossed the 5 against the 10, and now we're getting ready to cross the 5 against the 20 mall. And if that happens, that's like the number one main bear signal for me, is that the trend's changing for the short term. And we also had a very important cross, which isn't as important for a lot of people. Uh, what I mean by that is that we crossed the 50 mile again on the daily chart, and while we've been doing that recently on some of these major sells, um, that's a kind of a pretty large trend indicator if we're going to start pulling under that again. So if we do have this lower Bollinger move, um, that's going to put us pretty deep in bear territory, and we will have to really start evaluating uh, some of these larger gaps, like this 575 gap, and considering this could be a potential double top. Um, Seeing how we kind of really did reject that upper consolidation channel, this could be a double top, and we could pull down towards, that bottom major buying channels. Sorry, I'm forgetting the names of the channels because I haven't talked about them in such a long time. So, yeah, it's the bottom of the major buying channel. So that could possibly be tested pretty soon here. As things are getting really bearish, the ADL is getting extremely bearish. Um, Even though we're still at a really high level, I mean, granted, where we're at right now is still where we were at not even 2 weeks ago. So we were still at all-time highs, you know, basically at that time. And that was at that this level before that major gap up to the 613. So, the ADL is still in a great spot, but it's starting to get pretty bullish or pretty bearish. So just be on the lookout that things are starting to get bearish. It is starting to look like we are going to reject this um this upper consolidation channel and basically pull all the way down towards the lower selling channel over. And this isn't going to be over the period of just a couple days. This is going to be you know over half a week session plus um and then depending on where Nvidia, if Nvidia does really well or not, then we can bounce right back up to the upper consolidation channel again, build more liquidity, and build more structure from there, and head upward. I wanted the drawing tool. Basically form a cup and then form a handle and head upward if we're gonna continue upward, which that's very likely what does happen overall. These bearish moves generally don't last very long. It's not like we're entering a bear market right now. It would basically take Nvidia entirely failing their earnings to start a bear market. And that's something we could talk about more during tomorrow's video. If you know what some of the anticipation behind the video is looking like. But for now, I'm going to go ahead and end the video here. Just be really cautious. Tomorrow we might get a move upward just to pull downward really hard. So be watching the ADL on the 20-minute chart. And while the computer we build doesn't have the 20-minute charts, only has the 30-minute, excuse me, really be watching what they're doing with that ADL over this trading session. If you see it pull downward after you see the price of the market move upward, but you see the ADL moving downward, that's telling you that a sell-off is coming. And it's very likely that they do try to form a sell-off. Now, sorry, I'm losing my voice tonight. If they are going to head upward, you're going to see the ADL pulling upward on the 30-minute chart. You're going to see this gap all the way to the 603 taken. You're going to see a handle form. So very likely, plenty of bullish structure. But with that, we're going to go ahead and end the video here. I hope you have a great trading day tomorrow. Trade safe, be careful, and have a great day. And I will talk to you in the next video.